Alright, I promised everyone I'd do this one. I learned something about myself recently that was a real shock. But I've never been more proud of anything in my life. All of my life, I've felt lost, incomplete. But it was a feeling like it was not a lost feeling of lost. It was in reach. I knew everything around me, there was something wrong about it. I was the kid in school who would just look at those pages in the history books and just think, it wasn't that I didn't get it, it's just there was something not right about it. George Washington standing up in the boat in the Potomac. You don't stand up in the boat. One of the first things they tell you when they teach you how to work a boat, you don't stand in it. Disinformation has been my focus recently, because I'm sick of it. My entire life has been disinformation. Most people's lives are disinformation. They don't know where they come from, who they are. They can take a guess based on what color hair they have or something their parents tell them. Growing up, I always wondered why people asked me if I was Greek or if I was Jewish. It happened all the time. I'd say, no, I'm Irish. Little Scottish, little Dutch, little French-Canadian. Little did I know that there's a lot of truth in those instinctual feelings, the first impressions you get from someone. You meet somebody and you think something. It's just this hunch. And then later on, you find out you were absolutely right in that first few seconds. I've had that happen in my life so many times. You just don't feel right about something. Or you feel completely right about something. Growing up, I was always drawn to certain things. But I liked the comic books. You know, I liked comic books. There was certain music I liked. Certain television shows. Certain kind of humor. And only recently, I only found out all these things that I liked were created by Jewish artists. Whenever I had a crush on a girl, I don't care about race. I'd find out she was Jewish. Their eyes. There was something about a Jewish woman's eyes. It's just so gorgeous. It's just the brightness of the darkness of their eyes. And I never thought in terms of race, ever. My mother taught me not to be racist. She despised it. Her father was racist. And she taught me, she worked really hard to make sure I would turn out not racist, like my grandfather. My grandfather's father was shot in a brewery in 1923, and that's all we ever knew about him. My grandfather and his siblings, his 7 siblings, would never talk about it. There was something about it they didn't want anyone to know. When as an adult, I realized that 1923, that was in the middle of Prohibition. So if he was the master brewer in a brewery, he was doing something majorly illegal. My grandfather said the mafia killed him. But no. We are brainwashed into thinking the mafia, the Italian mafia, the godfathers, were the gods of all of that. No, they were the minions. They did the shooting, they did all kinds of things. Those were the mafiosos that people would see. But they were paid and instructed by people behind the scenes. When it came to brewing alcohol, that was just a big fiction. It wasn't against the law. It was against the law, except for some people. The idea was just to have a moment of exclusive profit for one group of people. The same group of people that control Congress. The same group of people that own television. The Zionists of America. The Zionists who have been building that empire secretly, just in a different way than other empires had been built in prior centuries, since Columbus. Columbus was a secret Jew, and you can tell from his will. It's written in the pattern of the Kaddish, the Jewish prayer. And there's Hebrew scripting and code. He tithes it exactly according to the Torah. And there's no surviving painting of Columbus from life, but there's a surviving painting of his son. There's no doubt what his nationality was. The Pirates of the Caribbean were all Jewish, and they made America. They own America, and they're not wanting to give it up very easily. They invited Europe to come and colonize, and they just want to control everybody that's here. It's their land. At least they think so. It goes back a long way. The Jewish people are very entrenched in fighting against the oppression they suffered before. And it was real. It goes way back. It goes back to when they lost Israel in the first century, in the first 100 years after Christ, when the Romans destroyed the temple. I found out recently that I'm a direct descendant of a group of people that lived in Israel that escaped. They caused a gigantic revolt before Rome came in. And they are generally blamed for causing the attractive element that brought Rome into Israel, because they defeated the Greeks and the word got back to Rome. And that's what really started it. They actually outreached to the Romans for help. And this was when Rome was first getting going, when they were fighting Hannibal and the Carthaginians. I'm a direct descendant of the lost tribe of the Maccabees. It took a lot of work to figure that out. And that's pretty major and a lot to be proud of. We're the ones that brought the menorah to the temple. And the fire lasted for 8 days. And it's celebrated as a miraculous event. And the problem was, we were of the tribe of Levi. The Levites were the priestly tribe. But the ruling tribe was the Davidic line. So when we took the temple back from the Greeks, we took the throne. And Jewish culture being what it is, when it comes to strict rules, that was a no-no. So they conveniently, even though we got the country back, they conveniently scapegoated us. And we finally had to flee. And they fled all the way to Ireland. And they were there secretly for 2,000 years. 2,000 years. But it's wonderful for me because I understand my rebel spirit. I understand now why I refuse to take injustice and the hunger that I have to overturn oppression and get back what's mine. I know what that feels like. And now I know. Now I know what I want to do with my life. Now I know what it feels like to feel complete and with purpose. I always said to myself, my life's work would begin when my father dies, and he died suddenly 3 years ago, and then I lost my mother. And all the things that I've learned in the interim, I'm trying to find the answer of why all these things happened to my parents, and the injustice of the banks and the government, and all the taxes and all the medical costs, and how it ruins people. And how in the end, you don't even have a right to a funeral. You mean nothing to the government. except what money you can make those criminals behind the puppets. And I want that to end. I want this to be a real country. I'm all for Israel as long as Israel's Israel. And they don't use us as a resource to just patsy, patsy, patsy and murder anyone they want. Now it's your country now. See if you can defend it on your own. America needs to go back to being America, if it ever was. The people of America are lied to. We're run by criminals. We're taxed by criminals. They get our money for free and laugh at us. And they watch us work the 40-hour week, and get tired out, and then come home to disinformation on the television. All the while, just to distract us from figuring out who is responsible for all of this. And I know who's responsible for it. When the crazy Occupy Wall Street people were chanting about the 1%, they were right. The Jewish population is 2%. Take away the women that aren't like that and the few men that don't care about that, you have the 1% of the ownership of the country who don't care anything about the country except what the country can do for them. This has got to stop. People got to wake up. The good thing is that disinformation agents like Jones and there is a whole team of them, they're screwing up. You make some crazy film like Loose Change, you don't think we're going to figure out that that's just a big matrix of disinformation? It's like, who do they not want us to guess did this? Yeah. Who do you think wrote the Patriot Act? Who do you think is in charge of TSA and the pat-downs and the probes? Michael Chertoff. His father's a rabbi. He comes from a line of terrorists in Israel. And he was he's the head of the Justice Department, head of Homeland Security. How crazy is that? I mean, when they caught Mossad in that van with the painting that says 9/11 on the side, with the buildings and everything, and he lets them go. The prime suspects, and he lets them go. How much more proof do you need? The Twin Towers were owned by two Jewish men who set up a insurance clause that says if planes hit the building, they get this amount of money. And that was 6 weeks, if that, before the event. And then they have the gall in court in front of Mike McKay's, who also is Israeli citizen, and they're dual Israeli citizens. They get away with that too, right in front of our faces. Silverstein asked for double the money because it's 2 planes and it should be 2 terrorist events, and he got that. Making billions off of a tragedy. You have to wake up. Anyone that had a mutual fund lost it at 9/11. The middle class lost its ass and they never got it back. It was an attack on you. It was an attack on me. I'm tired of this. I can imagine a beautiful world without crime being in charge of everything. I can imagine the principles of the Republic materializing and have it not be a cartoon, an animated cartoon hopping around. I want that life. I want the criminals exposed, even if they're my own kind. It takes one to know one, they say. And I know exactly what and who I am dealing with.